Alive and Well STL is a presentation of the St. Louis Regional Health Commission and Rare Gem Productions to build a healthier St. Louis. Power up with the positive. Learn more at oneraregem.com. That's ONERAREGEM.com.
Support for Alive and Well STL comes from Beyond Housing, helps entire communities become better places to live. Learn more at beyondhousing.org.
The Regional Health Commission works in partnership with regional health sector advocates and stakeholders to improve healthcare access, reduce health disparities, and improve health outcomes for the uninsured and the underinsured in St. Louis City and County.
Alive and Well STL with Bethany Johnson-Javois, CEO of the St. Louis Integrated Health Network and Managing Director of the Ferguson Commission.
As we talk and think about what it means for our community to be alive and well, we want to mention the very important work that NAMI St. Louis does in our region. NAMI supports those living with mental illness and their loved ones through a variety of avenues, including providing informational linkages to resources, facilitating peer support groups, advocating to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to reach their full potential, and supporting the families, the caregivers, the friends, which we know is such a critical role of those living with mental illness through the Family to Family program.
Mental health is a worldwide issue. It's in every country. It's in every ethnicity. It's in every, whether you're rich or poor, where you live, none of that makes any difference. It affects people, 1 in 4 people. So we want to help everyone we can. I can see when we teach family to family, and I love teaching it also, that we make a difference for people and we change their lives and we get rid of some of their stigma and we give them hope. And I know our classes are helpful to every single person we have had in our classes. It doesn't matter who they were, how rich they were, it didn't matter. We help them and we can help people and we care. We know what it's like to struggle with this ill family member. I personally know what it's like to struggle with mental illness, and I know we can make a difference for everyone who uses our services.
We'll be right back. So as you know, the title of this radio program, and more than that, the title of this movement is Alive and Well. And when we think about the stress that dealing with mental illness can place on a family, not just the individual, but really the family structure and the community, we see that the challenge to be alive and well extends beyond only the person with mental illness. It extends beyond friends and loved ones. Joyce and Sandra, talk with us about what it means for a family affected by mental illness to be alive and well.
Well, initially, when a person in your family is diagnosed with a mental illness, it is a very huge trauma for the entire family, and it is a crisis. You are in crisis mode. You're faced with an overwhelming burden of stress and anxiety, and it causes very intense feelings and chronic worry, which affects us. And some of the keys to success with that is that you have to learn about your predictable, and yes, they are predictable emotional responses. You have to educate yourself, and we have to restore balance in our lives when this happens.
Alive and Well STL.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today. I am Bethany Johnson-Javois, host of Alive and Well STL and Managing Director of the Ferguson Commission. Today we are joined in the studio by Joyce Johnston, Director of Programs for National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI St. Louis, and Sandra Hartge, a member of the NAMI St. Louis Board of Directors and facilitator of NAMI's Family to Family program. As we talk and think about what it means for our community to be alive and well, I am so pleased to be speaking with the two of you, as your work in helping to support the families, the caregivers, and friends of those living with mental illness is so critical to promoting well-being to our community. So we're very eager to hear from you today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So before we get started, we want to mention the very important work that NAMI St. Louis does in our region. NAMI supports those living with mental illness and their loved ones through a variety of avenues, including providing informational linkages to resources, facilitating peer support groups, advocating to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to reach their full potential, and supporting the families, the caregivers, the friends, which we know is such a critical role of those living with mental illness through the Family to Family program. So again, shout out to NAMI for your incredible work. How long have you been in the community?
We have been around since 1978.
It's It's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Talk with us about what it means for a family affected by mental illness to be alive and well.
Well, initially, when a person in your family is diagnosed with a mental illness, it is a very huge trauma for the entire family, and it is a crisis. You are in crisis mode. You're faced with an overwhelming burden of stress and anxiety, and it causes very intense feelings and chronic worry, which affects us. And some of the keys to success with that is that you have to learn about your predictable, and yes, they are predictable emotional responses. You have to educate yourself, and we have to restore balance in our lives when this happens.
Talk about some of those predictable responses.
So there's 3 stages. The first one is that crisis stage where you are in denial. You can't believe this is happening. You are traumatized. It is just a huge trauma for the entire family. And the second stage is where you've kind of accepted what's going on, and now you're ready to face the issue head on. But it also brings you a lot of guilt and shame and stigma, and you are really angry sometimes and sad, and you have a lot of grief. And then if you are successful in moving into the third stage, then you are accepting what's going on. And now you're reaching out to other people to help them through their similar journey. And you do move back and forth in the stages. They're not linear, because as you go through yet another crisis with your family member, then you kind of go in and out of the stages.
Thank you for sharing that. Sandra, what are some of the ways to be successful when mental illness has impacted a family structure?
One of the main things is to not let your loved one be the sole focus. Sometimes it can be overwhelming and the entire family is caught up with the loved one and the mental illness. But taking the focus off of that loved one and spending time for yourself, it's very hard to do, but having time, taking time for yourself, finding that support group, because sometimes it's just a matter of being able to find somebody you can connect with that understands without having to go through a lot of detail of what's going on. There are other people out there that have the same kind of situation. So again, taking focus off of your loved one, still learning how to take care of yourself and finding that support group.
I think you make a really important point. I've heard from community members who speak to me, from the siblings in particular, the resentment of the parents who focused so much attention that they felt neglected. Can you speak to maybe some of those individuals, or speak to a parent that maybe thinks the attention needs to go in that direction? How do you find balance with that? Those are multiple kids or multiple situations happening in your home.
Well, I personally have 2 children with mental illness, and I have 1 child without mental illness. And oftentimes I catch myself speaking about the other 2 children who are ill, and some people don't even know I have a 3rd child. And it's very difficult because all of your time is going to getting them to the hospital, getting them on their medications, getting them to school, coping with all the issues. And so this other child is going along trying to manage on their own. She also was the middle child, and I know there's problems there, but actually she's done very well, and it was very challenging for her.
Thank you.
And I did neglect her.
But you're learning from it, and you can acknowledge that. And I think the awareness to say, hey, I've got 3, not 2,
correct,
is an important first step in success.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing your personal experience on that. So both of you, share more about the Family to Family program. I know that it's part of a national evidence-based model. Joyce, talk about how this program came to St. Louis and how it has impacted our community so far.
So NAMI is a national organization with state affiliates and local affiliates, and it was founded in 1978 by families who had folks in their family with schizophrenia originally. And then NAMI National came about in 79, and they developed the Family to Family signature class, and it's written by Dr. Joyce Berlin. It began in 1997. And it is offered in 49 states, Canada, Italy, Mexico, and over 300,000 people have graduated from the 12-week program that we offer. And most people who graduate consider that class to be life-changing.
Sandra, can you walk us through a little of what the Family to Family program offers participants? What should someone expect when they attend their first session?
Sure. Just put a little backspin on that. I took the class once, And I've taught it, I think, at least 5 times, if not 6 times. So I've seen a lot of people go through the class. And every time I teach the class, I tell the participants on the very first day, it's like, I wish I had a camera because I can see changes in their faces from day 1 to the 12th day. It's just totally different. As soon as they walk in, they see people that are just like them. They see people who are going through the same thing. And sometimes if you don't have the answers, just knowing that I can tell somebody what's going on. I don't have to give them all the details. I can tell them what's going on and they understand. And just that camaraderie is wonderful, but also the education that you get. You learn about the side effects of medication, learn about medications, you learn about symptoms of the disease. And sometimes just knowing what the symptoms are keeps you from being angry. You may be angry at your loved one when you walk into the class and then you realize, oh, that behavior that I don't like, that's part of their mental illness. I can't be mad about that. So it really, really helps. And some really good skills that you learn. You learn about communication. First time I took the class, I learned about communication and making these I statements. And I went home and practiced it with my son. And he's like, why are you talking like that? But it really, really helps to be able to communicate, know how to communicate. You don't spend a long time in giving all the details. You have very short sentences, and it takes away all the anger and some of the arguments out of that. So just changing your own behavior changes the dynamic of the family. So you learn all of that in that class, and it's just wonderful to participate, and I love teaching it. Every time I go in there, I learn something new.
So how is Family to Family distinctively different than other peer support programs?
Well, knowledge is strength. Okay, so if we educate ourselves through other people who have been through the same journey, the same experiences, and learn what they have to offer that is of value, it's a critical piece of helping our family member. And there aren't a lot of things out there for family members. There are things out there for individuals, but not necessarily for family members. And they need support, education, and they need to know that they are not alone, and it gives them hope.
So important. Sandra, can you talk more about how developing a trauma lens can help the family members of those living with mental illness? What are some of the effects of having a better understanding of trauma on being able to support or provide care?
I think one of the things is we're maybe a little bit more gentle with our loved ones when we understand what's going on. We lose that anger. And like I said before, we realize that those behaviors of the loved ones is part of the mental illness. They aren't being willful, or they can't just try harder. You know, sometimes you hear it's like, they're not trying hard enough. You can get out of bed, just try harder. And it's not true. They can't try harder. They're doing the best they can. And if they get treatment, they can restore their lives back to maybe not what it was before, but definitely to a good life again. I mean, it may be different, and we all have to accept that things may be different, but different isn't always bad. Different is just different. So I think that helps.
And can you take a moment? You mentioned kind of a myth about try harder. What are some of the other myths that we should take this opportunity to debunk?
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's ridiculous to say that. It's like saying to someone who has a broken arm, lift this gallon of milk, because they can't do it. You can't see their problems like you can see a broken arm or a broken leg. You can't see them, so you don't really understand what those things are.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of, you're just being lazy kind of things. I mean, my son, when his friends would say, you're just not trying enough, you're just being lazy. You could do it if you wanted to.
Yeah. And the other point I wanted to kind of tease out more, you were talking earlier about some things that individuals get really angry at that person about, but when you learn that it's a symptom, then it releases the anger and shifts a place of compassion in you. What are some of those types of behaviors that may be common? I know that per diagnosis it can be different, but that are common that maybe if we were more sensitive to, we would think differently about that.
Well, it is speaking as an individual with a mental illness. When you get up in the morning, you can start off having a very bad day. It can just take a small thing, and it affects everything you do for that day. And possibly you might miss a medication, or take it too late. That causes problems. You might not feel well otherwise, and that affects your mental health. It might be raining, and that affects your mental health. So all the things that other people kind of take for granted, people with mental illness struggle with. It's very difficult to get through a day sometimes with a mental illness.
This question, NAMI, at least in my experience a few years ago, had a little bit of stigma to it. That in some communities, NAMI was seen as an organization that supported, in particular, one type of person or one type of family. I'd like to give you an opportunity to talk about NAMI's efforts to reach out into the community, that these are methods that really are helpful across racial ethnic lines. Talk a little bit more about that.
Well, first of all, mental health is a worldwide issue. It's in every country. It's in every ethnicity. It's in every, whether you're rich or poor, where you live, none of that makes any difference. It affects people, 1 in 4 people. So we want to help everyone we can. I can see when we teach family to family, and I love teaching it also, that we make a difference for people and we change their lives and we get rid of some of their stigma and we give them hope. And I know our classes are helpful to every single person we have had in our classes. It doesn't matter who they were, how rich they were, it didn't matter. We help them and we can help people and we care. We know what it's like to struggle with this ill family member. I personally know what it's like to struggle with mental illness, and I know we can make a difference for everyone who uses our services.
So let's close in this way, and I want to thank you because your passion oozes all the way over here where I'm sitting. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you for being so transparent about that, because I think the more that we are transparent, the more that this resonates and people are no longer afraid to be human and show up completely themselves, because we're talking about people beyond the label, right? What hope can you offer to the families of those with mental illness who may not feel alive and well at this moment?
Okay, with the right treatment, including medications and support from family and friends, the person with the illness can get better. They can. I am in recovery. I have a wonderful life. Yes, I have to take medications. Yes, when I get stressed, I need therapy. But I have a wonderful, amazing life despite my mental illness. And treatment does work. It works better than with cancer and heart disease. Treatment works. So support, education, and a community of friends who can understand can make everybody's life more satisfying and meaningful again.
Thank you. What do you think?
Absolutely the same thing, that treatment works. And again, from my personal experience, I saw my loved one who couldn't get out of bed, who didn't graduate from high school, who, couldn't do this, didn't do this in the early days to now. He lives on his own in another city. He has a wonderful job and is in a wonderful relationship, and he's very happy. So treatment can work. And I always tell people in my support groups and my family-to-family class, never give up hope.
Thank you for sharing that. Anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Well, I want to make sure that everybody knows we have a helpline, and that number is 314-962-4670. We also have a brand new website, which is very user-friendly and very informative, and we would love it to have people to support us and to help us be the voice of mental illness in St. Louis.
The voice and the face.
Yes.
Absolutely.
The other thing I wanted to add, and this comes from my son too, sometimes the thing that helps the most is just listen. Don't try and fix me. Let me do my own work. Just listen to me. And the hardest part sometimes is listening without emotion. We moms want to cry a lot. So you've got to listen dispassionately almost, and just listen to them sharing what they're feeling, knowing that you're not going to react. They can have their own emotions and they can deal with themselves and not have to deal with what you're going through as well.
I want to thank you both, Sandra and Joyce, for joining us. Thank you, everyone who is listening, for another episode of Alive and Well STL. We look forward again to engaging in this type of conversation and movement with you. For more information about Alive and Well, you know what to do. I say it every week. We'll be back again next week.
Thank you.
Alive and Well, STL.
We are grateful for your gift of time to this conversation. We encourage you to stay involved and get involved.
If you, your family, or your organization is interested in talking about how we better the well-being of the region, sign up for more information, join the conversation, log on to aliveandwellstl.com, and let's build a plan on how we can work together and improve our overall health and become alive and well. The Regional Health Commission with Chief Executive Officer Robert Friend Johnson Jr., committed to providing a detailed review of change over the past decade in 14 leading health indicators for the city and county of St. Louis. The first decade review of health status report, an update to building a healthier St. Louis. Discover the narrative, the data, and celebrate the progress already made to improve healthcare access and reduce health disparities in our region. Learn more at stlrhc.org. Alive and Well STL is another positive production of Rare Gem Productions. Thanks for listening.